Hello, everyone. Today I'm looking at Miside, or as I think it should be pronounced, My Side. This is a great game. It's not perfect, it's not amazing, but it's a very fun horror game, as people might have will figure out from artwork and things down the line. I think if you're not really aware of the game and what it's like, it's one of these things that parades as a cutesy game that's really masquerading as an evil game essentially. And I kind of very quickly got that vibe. But what I did not expect is how far it takes that style. This is actually a very fun horror game, and it's really interesting to see how the game is built and how it progresses. Where the concept is essentially that you are some guy living in your house doing your 9 to 5 job, and you have this gacha girl game, and you're taking care of your gacha girl or whatever. And at a certain point, you end up in the game. And then what ends up happening is that all of the different versions of the game, well, the girl is, of course, obsessed with you and tries to kill you and corrupt you and keep you. And she doesn't let you leave the game. She tries to trap you, and she becomes this obsessive character. And so it's a really nice commentary. It's like basically an isekai, but not a reverse isekai, but an anti-isekai, where you get sent into another world that he's always wanted, but he does not want to be there. It's not good. It's a nightmare instead of a dream. And so you basically have to go through the different versions of the game to make it to the kind of very first version of the game. And so it's a commentary on, I guess, 9 to 5 loneliness, lifestyle, parasocial lifestyles, gacha games, and fake relationships in general. What I really like is that as you go through each version of the game worlds, you get a different version of Mita, who's the main character. And so there's a sleepy version, fun version, evil version, more so than her initial one. And it's actually a very fun, creative, game. What's really nice is that each level is essentially based around another mechanic, and so you can see that similar to other games I really enjoy is that there's the overarching mechanic where you walk around, you'll talk to her and choose dialogue options, but then there's each setting or version or chapter of the game. After that, there's a certain gimmick. So there's one where you have to do like a jungle run thing where you have to run through this hallway because she's chasing you with a chainsaw. There's another one where you have to solve a bunch of puzzles in order to get through this area. And it's fun because all of these mechanics are introduced. They're not super complex, and they don't overstay their welcome. And I think another great thing about My Side is that and it's called that because she wants you by her side, or my side, as she says. And so, none of these mechanics outstay their welcome. The game's very fast. They introduce, she's actually evil, and now you have to go here, and now you have to do this. And so it just picks up its pace very, very quickly. And I really appreciate that in games where you don't spend time learning about skills or tutorials or blah blah or whatever. And there's some foreshadowing where like, oh yeah, she has a chainsaw in the oven is the first clue. It's like, okay, I can tell where this might be going. But I was really impressed. For example, there's one version of Mita that's a small demon child that essentially is recreating the what's it called, the PT Silent Hills game. That was actually very enjoyable. They also have really good designs for some of the horror enemies that come out of the walls that are connected to Mita. Mita's evil version, her first version, is actually super creepy. Reminded me of Ju-on or The Grudge style of a hyper realistic but uncanny valley anime girl. And yeah, it gets increasingly creepy and fun. It's done really, really well, and I really enjoy it. And it's a commentary on, really, it's saying, don't play these effing gacha games. Don't fall in love with a virtual girl who isn't real, you dummy. Which I appreciate. So that's a good message. And I'm just surprised by how many different mechanics and mini mechanics there are in the game. from the different puzzles you solve, from the different, suddenly you get a flashlight, suddenly you can run, suddenly you can do this, suddenly there's this mini game. You can, manage the furniture in the house, and there's those, it keeps things fresh, which I really enjoy. Some of my favorite games are like that, like Nier, where suddenly, you have a hack and slash, becomes a bullet hell shooter, which becomes a text-based story thing. It's that variety in gameplay that keeps it really fresh. Also, I mean, obviously the characters are pretty interesting and attractive. They're not ugly looking, which is, says something for AAA, that, they cannot make attractive characters anymore. And there's like a good Mita and a bad Mita, and she's trying to help you. And they have this whole lore where if you die, your memories get erased, but you never die. And her ultimate goal is to turn you into a game cartridge. So yeah, there's just a lot of really cool stuff, good tension, good storytelling, and really conceptual in a lot of places. So overall, it's just a very fun experience, and I would just dive into it blind, honestly, as blind as you can, and just experience it and just see, what people are talking about. And yeah, it's a very short game. I guess technically you could call it a visual novel, but there's so many different mechanics. I have to say it's a real game and not just a walking simulator. Of course, the main thing that people talk about is the actual text and font. Making text and font in a video game interesting. These are kind of like the basic mechanics and things that developers, especially AAA, don't have time to think about. Well, it's just text on a screen. Who cares how it's represented? But here, it's really cool how it's color coded to the character. It pops up on screen, and it jumps around and falls on the floor as if it's actually there. From a UI perspective, it's actually very, very interesting and cool. And even to another degree, even the user interface is very, very slick. The main menu, I mean, I don't have a lot of games I can think of where the main menu is actually made very well and is very slick and has really great polish. But this game is surprisingly polished, especially in its menus and its user interfaces, of all things. It has a lot of polish in them, and I'm just really surprised. As I know, this game was made by essentially two people. It's really, really impressive. And again, like I said, indie is kind of the future of gaming, of real experiences that actually matter, and not 24/7 occupation games that are basically a second job. This feels like a small, condensed, fun experience. This with attractive characters, good story, fun mechanics that offers a memorable experience. The only issue I really ran into was the audio. Sometimes there was simply no music, where I feel like, hey, there should be some ambience here or some kind of track or something. There was also a mismatch between the voices and the sound effects. There's one jump scare in the game that I guarantee will absolutely get everyone, because you've played so much of the game up until that point, and it's near the end that you think you've seen it all, and it's during a very low moment, and it comes out of nowhere, and just like, oh, okay, it got me. It's a guaranteed jump scare moment, because it's when everything it has been happened and you think you've seen it all. It's actually pretty nice and pretty cool. But yeah, the voices were just sometimes way too quiet, and the music was also too quiet. So I had to do a lot of audio troubleshooting, essentially, in the aspect or sense of just settings in general. On that point, though, it was kind of funny that I was playing this and I realized there is definitely, obviously, an English language option for subtitles, but there is no language for there's no option for English language, which I found kind of surprising, because they had one for Russian, which of course it was made in, and it was pretty decent for a performance of this scope. But then there's also ones for like French and Portuguese and like Czech or something, like a bunch of random languages, and Spanish, but no English one. And I just thought, oh, that's kind of weird. I mean, I can understand if it was just Russian. But the default option, if you're playing this in an English-speaking country, is that it's just no voices. And I really encourage you to use voices because it's part of the experience. It's you really need to hear the characters. And I just chose Russian because that's the original voice it comes in. If I play a Japanese game and they have voices, I'm listening to it in Japanese. On that point, though, I think I will typically go for an English dub simply because whatever most people are going to hear it or be familiar with it, then I'm going to do that option essentially. Even if the Japanese dub is better or different, then I just go with the English one anyway. And it comes into things where certain characters come off very differently of English versus Japanese. But this one, it was originally in Russian. I played Fuga Melodies of Steel in French. Since it was an option and there was no English option, I was like, oh, okay, might as well do it in French. And it was a wonderful performance. So yeah. The Russian performance for the main character isn't great. He's very deadpan, which I think might be intentional, but I think I would have liked to hear him scream a bit more or get more emotional after everything. But yeah, he's very deadpan and very kind of objective. But overall, it's really important because the different metas, they have different voice effects on their voices, and it's really, really cool. It really adds a new layer to how they really feel and come out to the player, essentially. But yeah, that's my side. I think the more I talk about it, the less fun it gets if you haven't played it yet. So just play it fresh. It's definitely not what it seems. It's like, okay, yeah, there's this girl, and then she's not actually cute. She's evil. Whoa, crazy. But there's a lot more. There's a way more to that because the amount of twists that it does go way beyond that. There's a way more to it. And it's just a fun, like, I think my playtime was 4 hours. So yeah, you'll get through it very quickly. And it's just one of these small experiences like, what was that other game? Mouthwashing. So just, yeah, go for it, basically. It's a very short, small, fun game. You should really just do it. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.